Now, a lot of you complain about feminism, a lot of us Mgtows, and I would like to present the argument and to assert that the root cause of women's behavior, which offends us so greatly, is Western philosophy. Is not feminism a Western philosophy? Did not women in the West popularize the movement? I believe it was de Pizan in France, and so on, all the way through the formation of the Eastern Star and Freemasonry, which took over the feminist movement and gave us the modern feminist movement. The Eastern Star started and controls the modern feminist movement. The Eastern Star is from Freemasonry, which is highly involved in Western philosophy. They consider themselves a continuation of the Pythagoreans, from Pythagoras, who many have called the most influential Western philosopher of all time. So, I urge you all, my fellow Mgtows, men going their own way, to consider that Western philosophy is the root of all the major evils we have. The banking system, Western philosophy. Psychiatry, Western philosophy. Feminism, Western philosophy. Now, many of you are white, and that's fine. I am half white. But for those of you who are religious, if the devil, called his philosophy Western, he called it, this is white philosophy. Does that mean you should take it up? Of course not. Of course not. Wrong is wrong, right is right. If it was Eastern philosophy, I would say that Eastern philosophy is the problem. If it was Semitic philosophy, I would say that Semitic philosophy is the problem. If it was Native American, if it was African, and so on. But let's face it, this is Western philosophy. Western philosophy gave us the problem, and perhaps a section of Western philosophy has given us part of the solution. But we all know that many of these feminists are lesbians, okay? And there will always be men and manginas to sell out. Mgtow will never include all men. So there's a good chance that a fair portion of men will go their own way, but society will continue without them. So Western philosophy has given you your individual solution, but it hasn't given us a social solution, a greater political solution. You see what I'm saying? Now, it may very well be that they have won already. The secret societies, the feminists, the psychiatrists, who are very liberalized, very feminist psychiatrists, they very much take on a feminist perspective. Look up for the feminist perspective of psychology. Okay, psychology and psychiatry is almost completely controlled by the left, and the left is almost completely controlled by women, whether or not people want to see it that way. In a way, and I'm not saying Republicans are the party you should belong to. I don't believe in either of the parties. But in a way, Democrats is the women party, and Republicans is the men's party. A lot of people don't see it that way, but women aren't big fans of guns. The left wants to ban gun rights. Women want sovereignty over their body in general. They're pro-choice. The right, they're more manly. They want guns. They tend to be against abortion. They tend to be more religious. They tend to be less sensitive. Women typically are sensitive to people's problems, even though us Mgtows don't quite see it that way. So the women are the ones who say, give programs for the poor, and the Republicans are the ones who say, no, support the rich, the rich white men. So, when you truly break it down, what is the root cause of women's behavior? You could say it's feminism, but that's oversimplifying it. It is actually Western philosophy in general. We spread feminism across the world. The Muslims didn't. The Africans didn't. The Asians didn't. The Native Americans didn't. We did. The West. We are responsible for the whole reason we're going our own way. Our philosophies The philosophies of our societies, whether you live in Sweden, Australia, or America, the philosophies of where we live are what causes women to behave in such a despicable, repugnant, odious fashion. Now, the second topic of this video is fat women. Recently, and catfish. Recently, I've been catfished, okay? Homosexuals, love to catfish people. When I was younger, they did a study, and some study said 25% of people on the internet who say that they're women are really men, and another study said as much as 50%. And then I've heard a pretty ridiculous study that said 80%. There was a lot of them, no matter how you slice it. I don't know how it is now. That was probably about 15 years ago. Now we have an epidemic of fat women, unattractive women, insecure women who pretend to be someone else. Okay? This shows you that it is mentally unhealthy for women to be overweight. Not just physically unhealthy, but mentally unhealthy, no matter how you slice it. It's the psychological effects of women being in society, especially Western society, which has caused them to turn to Western philosophy, specifically feminism, which says don't fat shame. And it has caused them to become catfish. For those of you who don't know the MTV TV show Catfish, it's when you make a fake profile with false information in order to attract somebody that you believe that you wouldn't otherwise have, and you might be right. Catfishing. Huge problem. The women who say, oh, don't fat shame, are silent about catfishing. Why is this? Why don't they care about treating people fairly? Keep in mind that some women are robbed and have been raped by burglars and criminals who are catfish. But still, feminists are silent about catfishing. Why? Because they are some of the biggest offenders of catfishing. At the expense of women's suffering, they will be silent because women are the biggest offenders. Showing us time and time again the countless hypocritical actions of feminists. Catfishing. Ask yourself what kind of a woman catfishes and what kind of people are telling them it's okay. Don't you see that part of don't slut shame is if a woman cheats on her husband, don't call her a slut. That's part of it. That's one of the reasons we call women sluts. If a prostitute is spreading STDs, don't call her a prostitute. But women will say, oh, there's men out there that stick their dick in everything and spread STDs. Forget the fact that the majority of prostitutes and strippers, the vast majority are women. The majority of STDs being spread is done by homosexuals and women. Forget that fact. They'll be silent about that. And they'll say, oh, well, men are the problem. Forget the fact that the majority of fat women are doing other people wrong, not vice versa. Most people know better than to make fun of a fat woman to her face. How often do you see someone walk down the street, oh, you fat bitch, randomly call out a fat woman? We see fat women all the time. How big of a problem is fat shaming? What they really want is they want women to have an unfair advantage. Whether they're whores, whether they're feminazis, whether they're lesbians, whether they're fat, they want their life to be easy. They want them in positions of power. That is what feminism is really about. What is in women's best interest, not equality, not social, political, and economic equality. No, I assure you they want inequality. So now that I'm almost out of time, let me wrap this up. To sum up, feminism is a result of Western philosophy, and Western philosophy has not given us any solution, only an individual solution, which most likely will not have a dramatic effect on the direction of Western philosophy, especially feminism, which is controlled by the Eastern Star and secret societies. And I don't think I need to explain to you why the secret society with millions of people across the world and affiliated with other groups has an unfair, disproportionate, and inordinate advantage when it comes to politics. And that fat women are mentally unhealthy for the most part. They catfish, and feminists are silent about this. Just say no to women, and especially say no to fat women. Thank you.